Welcome everyone to our first Innovation Forum of 2026. And we are extremely excited to be joined by Mickey Shaposhnik, who is quite literally calling in from the opposite side of the globe. So Mickey is the CEO and founder of Next Plus, which is a manufacturing execution system that is intended to reduce the friction when it comes to handoffs between engineering and the shop floor. So if you've ever dealt with delays, issues that happen when you're on the production floor and you're really attacking those symptoms, Next Plus really focuses upstream and to try to resolve those issues from even occurring in the first place to reduce the amount of rework, to reduce the amount of waste that's happening out on the shop floor. So we're extremely excited to learn about all the innovative ways that Next Plus is doing this. And without any further ado, I will hand it off to Mickey to dive into it.
Thank you so much, Norman. Thank you so much, Kirk. I think that's the best introduction I've ever gotten. So I appreciate that. And saying my last name on the perfect note, that's not easy. So I appreciate that highly. So pleasure meeting you all. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Mickey Shaposhnik from Nextclass, just like Norman said. I'll take this demo into a few avenues around reducing friction and the upstream of engineering. But before that, I'll have two disclaimers. So the first one, English is not my first language, as you noticed me signing in from the opposite side of the world. So in advance, I'll apologize if I'll forget a word or I'll fumble for a second, so you'll excuse me if that's okay. And the second, on this side of the world, we're extremely rude and we don't wait to the end for questions. So don't wait. If you have any questions or any idea or something you want, don't just unmute yourself, shout something at me and I'll stop and I'll try and answer you. So feel free. That's how we do it here in Tel Aviv. So Next Plus, let's talk a bit about what are we doing. Like Norman said, we're an MES system. That's our core. But if you'll go into our website, you'll see a big banner saying we're the anti-MES MES. And the reason being is that MES, we feel MES is a bit broken, right? So when we say MES to customers, they tend to think about really expensive software that they probably maybe will see ROI in 3 to 4 years, and it will take thousands of man hours of implementations, and pretty much everybody hates it. At least that's how I feel. I hope it hits something on what you feel as well. And we're trying to change everything about how we see MES. And the first thing about it, by the way, that smaller manufacturers feel that MES is something for enterprises only. And again, including the business model, and that's not a sales pitch, so we won't get into the business, but even in the business model, you can buy small, you can start small, we have customers with literally 5 employees, right? They're they're creating fermented foods in Ohio, and there are 5 employees. And on the other hand, we have customers with 5,000 employees, and it's the same system, right? So we're trying to tackle the core functionality without talking about how complicated it is, and trying to reduce friction on all of the facets of the thing. So without talking about 3-letter acronyms, and I love 3-letter acronyms, I'll try and explain with a few sentences what it's Next Plus, and then without any further ado, with no PowerPoints, I'll just show you what it does, and we'll try to play together with an MES system that you can all try by yourself and do really cool stuff with it, with a lot of AI baked into it. So Next Plus does extremely simple 4 things. The first vertical is digital work instructions, right? So we want to show the employees what to do at every step of the way. And it doesn't matter whether it's an assembly line or a setup of a machine or maintenance operation, whatever. We want our employees to do the right things at the right time, so we better show them what to do at the right time, right? The second pillar is data collection. And we have a few vectors that we collect data from. The first one is the employee himself. We call it the IoT, the human Internet of Things, right? So he clicks next, we get a data point. That's why it's called Next Plus, by the way, small secret here. And that's the first vector of data. The second one, we can ask him questions. So you closed with the torque. What was the torque that you closed with? You measured something with a caliper. What was the width? And the third one, of course, is connecting to tools around him. So whether it's a CNC machine, whether it's an enterprise ERP system, or a small tool, or a camera that we can use AI to gather data from the world around him, and we get this data inside and bake it into the thing that we're just building, right? So we showed him what to do, we collected the data around him. After that, the third thing that we do is data analytics. So we collected enormous amounts of data about this work order building this thing. Now we can analyze and understand things about this. And we have a lot of AI built into that, with the idea of not just saying AI. I'm like really trying not to use the word AI in my pitches, and that's like the 5th time I already did. But the idea is how to make it really practical, how to get the AI as a tool to give us value quickly and not just as a buzzword, because we're a company that's selling software that then we need to have AI, right? So that's the idea. And everything is around how to make it practical, how to give value. That's how we do it. So when we're talking about AI in analytics, the idea here is that we don't need like a PhD in computer science to get our first pass yield or our OEE or our OLE or what's the best shift or whatever, or what's our time. We need to ask the question and get the answer, right? Without having to have a lot of like time and material invested in this for this to happen. So show to do, collect the data, analyze the data. And the fourth, and I think most underrated part of our software, but is the most important per my thoughts, is tools for engineering departments to build those processes, right? So building work instructions, we didn't invent it. We had Microsoft Word before that, right? And we had like SolidWorks or Pro Engineer or CATIA or whatever, right? But doing it in such a fast way that we can iterate from engineering back to the shop floor, for engineering back to the shop floor, the NPI process, making it as short as possible, is the game changer with getting ROI from manufacturing execution systems. Does that make sense? Raymond, I appreciate that you're still with the camera and you're nodding. You're my anchor here, just for you to know. So that's awesome. Cool. So those are the 4 things that I want to show you. And for us to show them in a good way, we'll need to build a foundation of how does the system look like. So the beginning won't be very AI-y, but we'll start to understand the basics. And then on top of that, we'll build all of those layers to give us those types of practical tools for the upstream of engineering. So I'll try and share my screen now. I'll move you to this screen and I'll start here and I'll share screen. I'm working with Teams most of the time. There it is. Perfect. And share. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
That was a 3 yeses. Okay, you really see my screen. I appreciate that. Perfect. So the demo that I'll go through will go from the beginning as what does the employee see at the shop floor and how do we reduce friction there? How do we collect the data? How do we analyze it? All the things that I said, and how did we build those processes at the beginning using AI? So I'll start with launching some electronic assembly. The reason I chose an electronic assembly is just because it has all of the features, so we can show like really cool stuff in it. And the first thing that jumps or pops up for the user is the change log since the last ECO that it saw. And the idea here is very Israeli. So in Israel, when you go to a shop floor or an assembly line, nobody reads the manual, right? Nobody reads the work instructions, even though we like invest heavily in writing those, right? So the idea here is, listen, I know you don't look at the work instructions, but since the last time you did it, we changed the Loctite from being red to green, or we changed this screw size to this screw size, and like getting the important stuff on to be top of mind for the employee doing the work. And we work quite a lot in the US as well. And I think you have the same issue as well with some like employees that do the same thing again and again. They don't want to look at the work instructions, or they just don't do it. Cool. And this is the main screen. On the left, we have our root card. So in this case, we'll have 7 steps inside the installation part and then 4 steps in tests. And we'll talk in a second about this crossroad in a second. We have textual explanation of what to do in this specific step. And we have media. This could be a drawing, a CAD file, a video file, whatever. All of our customers start with 3D cool files and move to videos. And the idea behind it is how to take the tribal knowledge, not only from the engineering department, but from our best employee at the shop floor that knows that when you close this screw, when you feel the click at the end, that's when it will work. So you want this tribal knowledge to be in front of all of my employees while they're doing the thing, and not like in the work instruction manual that like gathers dust at the back end. So this is this side. And the next cool part is our multilingual feature. So this is the first time we're getting into like engineering and AI. It's all automatically translated into 160 languages. And the way it's being translated is that, and I'll click Spanish for a second just to get it translated, so you'll see it in a second. So we get all of the data translated here. But if you'll notice, the word installation wasn't translated and leads light weren't translated. And the reason is not a bug, it's a feature. So we are certified for FDA CFR 21 Part 11 for pharmaceuticals and certified for ISO AS 9100 for aerospace and defense. And with those certifications, even though the translation is automatic, if the engineering department didn't approve the translation, and we'll see in a few minutes how it works, so it falls back to the language it was written in. In this case, it was written in English, so we have the English words that weren't approved. And only this small AI feature, and I'll deep dive into it a bit more because it has like some interesting facets to it. Only this one can save tens of thousands of dollars in time and in wasted like translator costs when we have multinational operations, or we have employees that for them it's easier to see in a different language. For us in Israel, we work in 3 languages, right? We have Hebrew, Arabic, and Russian, and you have to have it, right? Everybody talks Hebrew, but it's easier for me to see it in Russian. I will see it in Russian, and then I can do my work with less error. Does that make sense? The cool part about it, and I don't show it in all my demos, but that's not a sales pitch, it's more of an innovation form. I want to show something really cool. We have an AI settings tab here. And in this tab, I can literally tell my AI translator what to do, right? So for example, I can say, listen, I'm from the aerospace industry. Don't translate names of LRUs. Or here's a table of specific names that are translated in a specific way, just like I would give a human translator, and then it will translate in this way. So we're literally translating exactly the same way like I would use a human translator. That's not Google Translate. That's like a literal human translator. I'll go back to English because my Spanish is even worse than my English. And then we'll continue from there.
Mickey,
Cool.
Can I ask you a quick
Yeah.
question about that? The language settings, like you just mentioned, because you have this opportunity to instruct how it talks to you. Is that kind of the point? Is it can customize how it talks to you, maybe from your background or language even?
Exactly. So not even that. So let's imagine we have a multinational manufacturer, right? So we have in the States and we have in Israel and we have somewhere in the East, right? So I write one time the work instructions, and we'll see how AI helps me with that as well. But I write it once and everybody gets it in their own language and their own way that they want to work. So we cut the rollout time of new products literally to 0. Because most of the time when you have multinationals, that's the time, how to translate those work instructions to different facilities.
Amazing. Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool. So I'm just getting warmed up. So we're starting. Cool. So if you remember, I told you the first data set that we get is the user clicking next. So I promised I will deliver. Here's the next button here. I click next. I get a green check mark here that says Mickey Shaposhnik signed off on this step and this time step. This is my Hebrew date, as you see, 7-1. So for you, I know it's 1-7. I know, so you can configure it. Sorry for the confusion here. So that's the time here. It's 8:15 at night, or 2015. Whoever was in the army. And here I click the next button. I got the check mark. It's like me signing off on this step. And I'll go over those like root card because it doesn't really matter what's the steps. You're not going to build the LCD here. I click next and I get all of those like check marks here. And at step 7, something interesting happens, and it's this red check mark that says that my certification is not enough to sign off on this step. So going back to engineering, we need to decide which gates do we have in the process. So gates could be, we need a signature by someone who has a certification of quality control, and this can be anything, right? Like only certified electricians need to sign off on this step, or the head engineer needs to sign off on this step, and you decide how to sprinkle those gates over your process. And there's like a golden like place where it's not too much gates, but it's not too little gates, right? And you need to find it in something that you iterate on all of the time. So I'll sign off with my QA user, xplus.io, copy, continue, perfect. So Mickey Shaposhnik signed off, Danny Cohen signed off as quality control. Nice, I'm at step 4, I move to my test department. And then at step 10, another interesting part happens, and it said, listen, you need to use an electric screwdriver. You have 4 of those on your shop floor, but you can't choose number 4 because it's not calibrated. So again, we need to have the same floor for the employee. He doesn't need to think about looking at the sticker, whether it's like calibrated until and all of those things. It's all for him, right? So he gets the knowledge just in time, and the knowledge includes which tools can he use, right? So in most cases, you'll have a barcode or an RFID on the tool. For me, it's a drop down because I'm sitting with my laptop here, right? So he shoots the barcode at the tool and it says, perfect, you can work with it. It's free to work, right? Click
Maybe
save.
that also sounds like it logs which ones are currently in use versus just calibration.
You're exactly right. And another step above that, and we'll see it in a few minutes, it logs this for the traceability, right? Because when I build airplanes, and that's most of our customers, they want to know which screwdriver we did. Because if something happens and I need to see which airplanes we use this specific screwdriver, it's a matter of which airplane. I'm just like clicking the buttons, get the answer in a second. And we'll do that in a few minutes. Okay, cool. Step 11 is like the most interesting step for a few reasons. First of all, like I said, the media file is video. We're taking the tribal knowledge from the best employee on the shop floor and getting it to everybody else. By the way, the smart part about it, because we have a lot of customers that have video files. We didn't invent video. But the interesting part here, how to take an hour-long video and get only the right part for this specific step. Because if you'll give him an hour-long video at this step, you won't wait an hour to find exactly the time where we see how to close this screw. You want to give him those 7 seconds. And that's an important bit of how to utilize our knowledge inside the operation. Does that make sense? Cool. The other interesting part about this step, sorry, is that we don't have a continuation for this route. You say route or route once and for all?
Route.
Route. Okay. Yeah. I have UK customers and US customers. Yeah. So we'll stick with route. So this route is non-linear, and that's pretty unique to what we're offering. So in most cases, routes are linear because the medium where we're giving the routes, i.e. paper, is linear, right? The best case scenario we can do is like step 1, step 2, step 3. If the lead is green, go to step 27, like one layer of dynamicity. I just invented the word of dynamicity in where to go, right? You can send him to other places. You can practically do like more like go-tos, but then this paper is not usable. In this case, when you use digital tools, at the back end, and we'll see in a few minutes, we have a decision tree, and dependent on the reality of that's in front of the employee, the tool will decide where he needs to go on the continuation of the route. So let's try this out together.
Mickey, I just want to make sure, I understood that, but this is like an if-then chart in the software.
The if-then is like the first layer, but it's more like a select case. And then I can have formulas on top of that. And if it's red and this happens and my name is Mickey and it's after 9, so do this. And if it's before 9, that's like the level.
Wow, that's
and
crazy.
We'll deep dive into that in a few minutes when we'll try and build those processes, like literally in 5 minutes. And the front end looks simple, right? It's just arrows. In a second, they will build some steps. But at the back end, that's like an elaborate decision tree that we built with AI, and we'll see those in a few seconds. Okay, cool. So what's the reality in front of the employee? Some of this data will get automatically from machinery, from CNC machines and from lathes and whatever. And some of it I will enter as an employee. So this is an electronic assembly. And the question for the employee is, okay, turn on the machine. What's the color of the LED, right? And then you can choose the color of the LED is green blinking. But way more interesting, instead of asking him, I can tell him, listen, take your phone, or here's the camera, take an image of the thing that you're building, and let's try it together. So I prepared an image of something with red LED, as you can see here. I click open. I wait a few seconds, and the AI behind it, I hope, we'll see in a second. I'm like with the, perfect. It shows red automatically. And there's no like code voodoo around it, right? We'll see in a second how I built it, but I literally told the computer at the back end, look for a LED in the image and choose the color out of the options you have in this list. That's what we did, right? And it's not only for LED color. This could be, for example, let's test like the voltage, right? Here's your voltage meter. There it is. I click open. I wait a few seconds, and I'll get the voltage here. So 22.8, right? So a lot of things we're accustomed to that if we want to get them digital, we need to pay enormous amounts of money to connect them to the digital world before. So the classic example is the calipers, right? So we have 1,000 calipers on the shop floor. None of them have a USB connection. We're not going to invest, I don't know, 100K into buying new calipers because we want them digital. No worries. Put a $5 camera from Walmart on top of your work environment. And every time you click this button, the regular caliper, even if it's like not digital at all, like a gauge caliper, and you read the data out of it. Make sense? Cool. So this is red, this is high, this is 22.8. I can ask like for proof pictures, things like that. fun. Look at what happens for the next step. I click next and build 4 new steps. But it actually took the employee back to visual inspection. It built those 4 steps again. Why? Because in the engineering department, we decided that if the LED is red, go do those 4 steps again, right? So at the back end, that's a loop. At the front end for the employee, he doesn't need to understand that's a loop. He knows reality that's red. So now I'm going to do those 4 steps. By the way, and I can bake in, for example, if it's red twice, call Kirk, right? If it's red only once, try to rework it again. And you build your own logic into what's my route that I'm building here. So let's go over those 4 steps again. We already saw them. So I'll use this screwdriver next. And this time the LED will be green. The switch state will be high. The measurement will be, I don't know, 26. And I'll click next. And suddenly I'm in connectivity. Why? Because the engineering department decided that if the LED is green, you can continue to the next station. Does that make sense? Cool. I'll run through this. No scratches. The surface is intact. Next. Smiley, fireworks. Everybody's happy. The employee finished this 1 unit of our electronic assembly. Let's go into the more interesting parts. So we gathered some data. Not a lot of data, but we gathered some data. And the basic part of gathering this data, and in most cases, by the way, that's like a different role in the system, but I'm a sysadmin, not to log off and log on during this demo for 10 times. So we get a traceability report, right? We built this thing. This is the part number. This is the revision. We started this time, ended this time. Status is finished. By the way, this implies that one of the cooler parts when you do electronic batch recording is that while we're building stuff at the shop floor, I can sit in my office and see all of those are building while they're being built. So I can see status in progress and see exactly where things are getting stuck on the shop floor live. And we'll see some dashboards around that in a second. So all of the fields that I collected, what was the LED color, what was the voltage measurement, and then it changed to a different voltage and so on and so forth. Rework happened once. By the way, this is not a system variable. This is something that I built that I said, listen, every time the LED is red, add 1. So in a few minutes, I will start asking AI questions about those rework variables, right? And here are all of this. Oh, sorry, the screwdriver number 1 and then screwdriver number 2. Those the managed tool that we saw earlier. And here are all of the signatures. By the way, the cool part, I'm not showing it anytime, but you're the crowd to show this. Remember at the beginning, I went from English to Spanish and then back to English. So I see that Mickey looked at the step without signing, looked at the step without signing, looked at the step and signed. So I get all of the data. I won't always use it, but for FDA and for ISO and for FAA, for regulation, that's like a game changer. I know everything that happens on my shop floor. So I signed, and then Danny Cohen signed off as the quality control. This was the basics that I wanted, the foundation that I wanted to put. Now to talk about the cool features of what we can do with what we just created. Cool. So let's start with, this is 1 unit, but I have a lot of those. I built a lot of those. If I'll go into my modeling workflow or workflows, and I have here the electronic assembly demo, I can see that I have 85 items. Some of them are done. Some of them are in progress. I can always look at the specific ones. That's okay. But I can use the feature called SKI. And SKI, it's like ChatGPT that knows all my data, right? And we have quite a few really cool parts about how we do that. So let's start with the basics. Remember that I asked him what was the voltage? So I can just literally talk to it and say, what's the voltage distribution? Right. Oh, really important.
Drop off the truck. Try to get them to give me a ride back. Otherwise, they're taking everything so I can work.
I think Jake is talking about something else. No worries. Remember to be nice to your AI, because when they'll take over the world, probably next week or something, they'll remember us, the guys that were nice to them. So I always finish with please, bro. And what happens now is that it literally goes and writes Python code, and I can always validate the Python code that it wrote. So the reason is that a lot of times we use AI as a black box, right? We throw things at it, and then we hope to get some answers, and we're not sure are they okay, and then we go and validate them, and that's a time-consuming process. The idea here is that we can see the train of thought exactly with the data that it used and how he used it to understand what happened while he did it. And that's something that allows us to validate the software for FDA CFR 21 Part 11, and we're pretty much the only ones in the world that validated AI answers. Make sense? Cool. What happened? So it analyzed stuff. and it analyzes a lot of stuff. So we'll give it a second. It's really funny to me that like today waiting 2 minutes for something that took 8 months only 2 years ago, that's like an issue, right? Cool. So I found, bro, thank you, mister. Out of 85 sessions, 34 had voltage measurements. This is the mean number. This is the median number. This is standard deviation. Here are the categories. Here's the chart of the distribution, like I just asked of it. Here's some more charts of the distribution in different ways, and what are the outliers and things like that. And that sums up what I can get from this. The cool part about it is that I don't want you to ask simple questions like I did. I'll leave that for another session, for another demo in a few seconds. The best questions for AI are open-ended questions. For example, find me cool correlations in the data. And why is that? Because this type of question, I have a lot of tools for BI. I can like drag and drop a few boxes, get this answer. We have it as well. Not a problem at all. But open-ended questions sometimes get you to a place where you have like thousands of input parameters and hundreds of output parameters, and you can manually find correlations, but will take you years. But if you throw it at an AI, this process can take seconds for something that could have taken years and would probably never happen. And we have a customer that builds transmissions for, let's call them really big vehicles, right? So imagine like a factory that one side has a lot of CNC machines building cogs, and the other side is like 2,000 man hours connecting those cogs to be a really big transmission. And the process looks like when the cog gets down from the CNC machine, it has about 10 measurements. Some have more, some have less, but that's like the median number, right? So 100 cogs, 10 measurements, that's 1,000 input parameters of sizes. And they have specs per each measurement, right? Pretty simple. And then they assemble this, and they have the first pass yield, the time of assembly, and things like that. And they ask this question, find cool parameters in the data. It was a joke. I said in the room, it was like, let's see what happens. And then it told them at about a specific cog in a specific measurement, right? It's inside the spec, but when it's like a bit high inside the spec, it impacts the first pass yield by 10%. Nobody could have ever imagined something like this. And then what do? Literally 5 seconds, changing the spec to be a bit lower. It was like 0.5 millimeter. I don't remember the numbers. Don't catch me on the numbers. ECO done, getting like first pass yields better, like 10 to 15%. And there's no way in the world they can do it without tools like that. So these are the things that literally changed the world of how we see this. Let's step it up a notch. So for now, analytics, nice. And you can like talk to your data, nice. I know it's pretty cool, but that's nice. Let's talk about forms, and we'll circle back to why it's connected. So forms is something that every factory has, and has a lot of them. So I've heard, I'm not sure, never worked with, it's my first factory, right? So I've heard there's a lot of forms, and they could like come in different forms. For example, a fault report, or an RMA report, or like machine fault, or a waiver on something like engineering, whatever. We have a lot of like paperwork, whether, by the way, they can be digital with Excel or like Google Forms or whatever, but they're paperwork, right? So we have a form editor inside Nextbus, and I have a really cool example here of a form of a fault report. The customer builds their own fields, and they can have as many fields as they want. So in this case, I will have which room are you in, what station are you in, what's the fault description in free text, what's the severity, crisis, important, whatever, and what's the category? Is it electrical, mechanical, operator, whatever, right? And I'm in this business for 17 years almost. I saw that in cases where you have a drop down like this, 80% of the time, not always, but 80% of the time, it will be an electrical fault. And the reason is not because we have an electrical problem or anything like that. It's usually because it's the first one in the drop down. So our employees have forms, but they rather do their job. Like we count how many items they get out, right? And how fast they get those items from the shop floor, and not how good the forms are. But it's important for us as managers to know the data, because if we have a lot of mechanicals, we need to, like, I don't know, change the cogs, add more, oil, whatever, right? So we want to reduce friction. When I'm talking about engineering to shop floor, reduce friction for the employees at the shop floor to enter the data into the form. Enters Form AI Assistant. So this is a feature that we rolled out almost 4 months ago, and the feedback we're getting from our customers about this it's literally a small like feature we rolled out, is like in proportionate to the amount of time we invested into like building it, the thought was the right thing. So how does it work? A bit like the SKI that we saw earlier, I have a message box I can talk to. And let's say, for example, I'm in clean room number 1, at the ATP station. Nothing is working. It's not turning on. I don't know what to do. Right? So that's me on my cell phone talking to my form. I click next. The cool part is that it knows all of the previous faults that already happened. And if it has a solution, it will actually propose a solution before me like getting stuck. But the other part that it's doing, it's suggesting for me a filled form, right? So it knows it's clean room 1, it knows it's ATP, nothing is working, it knows it's a crisis, and it knows it's electrical. If you'll notice, I haven't said the word electrical. It got the implication from it's not turning on. So it understood it's probably electrical. So I want my employees to talk and for the forms to be filled out. The other cool part about it, and I'll just refresh, I'll go again to that one like a fresh form. So I'll save this one, I'll open a new one. And let's start a new form. That's an empty form with the AI assistant here. The cool part is that this form is in English, right? But my native tongue is Hebrew. You're going to hear Hebrew for the first time. So I can speak to my thing at my own language, and let's see what happens. So bear with me for a second. אני בחדר נקי מספר 1, בתחנת בדיקה סופית. שום דבר לא עובד, נראה לי זו בעיה חשמלית. תקרא דחוף לטכנאי. So sorry for the Hebrew. Just a second. That's Hebrew. Hebrew is from right to left, right? I click send. I wait a few seconds. I spoke Hebrew. My form is in English. It tells me stuff that it understood from that. And then it will suggest for me to fill out the form in a second. And I get the form here. Cool. So we're killing the language barrier. We want the friction for the employee to enter the data into the system as low as possible for me to get this to later analyze this data at the simplest way possible. Does that make sense? By the way, the same data that I just collected, if I'll go and ask this data as a manager this time, and I'll do the question that I promised earlier, and I'll say, let's find cool correlations inside the data and just send it out. And in a few seconds, I will get like different correlations that I didn't find earlier. So let's give it a second. We need to add like elevator music while we're doing this. I think this will make it like 10x better, right? So I can always like sneak peek into what it's doing and understand the idea. While we're doing it, and I talked to you about that this is Python code, I didn't say that it's actually running inside my browser. So we have quite a few aerospace and defense customers that don't like AI in the cloud or cloud at all or things like that. And you have data regulation and stuff like that. So we have solutions that they can work in their air-gapped environment, keeping all of those things inside with no OpenAI or Google's or AWS's peeking into their data. And that's, again, like a very important part of how to make it practical, because we can take like an OpenAI GPT model, slap it inside and say we have AI, but we need to make it practical for our type of customers. And that's part of how do we do that. So a few more seconds. That's a hard question because there's a lot of like input parameters. It's writing a lot of code, as you can see. I'll give it another like 60 seconds and we'll continue if you won't get an answer yet. Any questions in the meantime? That's a good time for questions like break if you have anyone.
Hey, Mickey, I just want to say that it looks like you made this really fun for young workers because they can use their smartphones and take pictures of the work, and that gave them a little kudo at the end of their job. And so I kind of love the whole digital, I don't know, interaction and reward system you've got built in too.
I appreciate that. That's I'll show you in a second what's this your year thing. That's my favorite. And that's a byproduct by mistake of having our team like I'm the oldest. So our team is like 21. So we suddenly get new features and we give them like a free hand in like finding cool solutions to things, and then you find emojis all over your system. So don't try this at home.
Great.
Cool. So what did it find? So we have a few things that it found. So there's not a lot of like data here. There's only like 10 forms. So the data is a bit like clunky, right? But it still found a few things. If I go back here, it says, for example, 6 out of the 8 issues are electrical, right? And all of them are crisis. You already understand how my demo works. Or 8 p.m. is the pattern. Because I'm in Israel and this is my demo environment for the United States, So I work only at 8, 9, and 10 p.m. So that's most of my demo times, right? And terrible Tuesday. Tuesday is my US day that I do demos for the US. So you see all of the data is like getting out of the data that's in here. I hope that's cool. Let's continue to the next part. Cool. So we talked about our workflow. We talked about forms. Let's go back to our workflow. And this time I want to look at it. Oh, sorry, Kirk, I promised about this, your year. So your year, it's like a Spotify your year, right? So we have this, I click it, and we have like, how many work orders did you finish? Right, so all of those things. You can't hear the music, right? So there's like really loud music that we use the AI to create like a song about Next+. That's the type of thing. We're like the fun MES. Tell me about another MES provider that has fun with their system, right? So it's like a boring, we have tables, right? So having fun, that's part of the thing. Cool, back to being serious. So the process that we saw earlier, let's see the backend. How does it look for the engineering department? So I won't deep dive into the version control. It's interesting, but boring at the same time. So it's all like very enterprise grade. You lock versions that you go to the shop floor and all of those bells and whistles, but I won't talk about this too much. But the important part to know about it is that I can have a version on my shop floor while I'm trying out things at a sandbox without interrupting my employees. So I can try out things in my sandbox, and when I'm ready and I have the right permissions, I will publish it down to the shop floor, right? And this is the main event. Each node here is the node that the employee saw. Remember the red LED made like the circle, right? We went back to the same 4 steps. So there it is, right? If I go and click on this arrow, it literally says, when a power switch, what's the color of the LED equals red, go here. All of the others not equals red, go here. It's that simple. So let's try and build something interesting. Let's say I want to add a step, add a test, sorry. The test says, listen, let's check a caliper. So I add a field, and if you worked with ERP systems, you probably know that adding a field is like paying $500 to someone to come in and then add the field, right? So the idea here is literally the opposite. You can enter the system and add whichever field that you want. And you can add text input, radio buttons, select boxes, any type of field, including some really cool stuff. So for example, a location field. So we have customers that after they build a big machine, someone from the company goes and installs it at the customer's site. And they want to know that the technician that installed their system filled the form near the machine and not in the hotel at night. So they add a location field and know the GPS location of where he was while he was doing the thing, right? Or an image-based form, probably my favorite. So let's imagine a PCB, right? And in fault forms, you want to ask the employee where is like the broken thing. So in the best case scenario, we'll have a drop down at the back, at the front, at the bottom. You'll have like geography with words. And an image-based form, you can literally show a picture of the PCB and tell the employee, touch where the fault was. And then the next step will be, you can see like a heat map of where are most of my faults. And you can understand that you probably have an engineering problem at this area of the PCB, for example, because most of the faults are coming here. So you have, I don't know, I forgot the word in English, like lines of copper that are too close or whatever, right? So let's go simple. I'll add a text input, and I want the text input to be, what's the width at point X, right? And it's going to be a number. And now let's read it automatically from a caliper. So how do I do that? I get 2 PhDs in computer science. No, just kidding. I click the Vision AI checkbox, right? And then I prompt the computer what to look for in the image. So let's do it together. In the image, there's a caliper. I want the number from the caliper screen. Give me numbers only with no additional text. That's it. Let's save. Let's add, sorry, and save. Now let's preview what we just did. So those are the questions you already know, and there's the what's the width at point X. And then I can just take an image of a caliper. So there it is. I click open. I wait a few seconds. In like real life scenario, it's not going to be open. It's going to be like from the camera, right? But here I'm like with my laptop, and it's got the number from the caliper. So imagine the things that you can do. And we suddenly found customers using this for things that we never imagined. So for example, I have a customer that asked, and I can show you in a second, whether the employee like needs to take a selfie. Does he have personal protection for his eyes, like the goggles, right? Who would have thought for this feature that we built for reading stuff out of like calipers, someone will use it for this? Or someone is counting screws in the kit. So do you have 8 screws? Tuck, done, right? Things like that. Cool. We saw this. Now for the big elephant in the room. So this is something that we have for 10 years. People love it, like the builder, right? So I can add like things from here. I can add conditions when the width is greater than 15, go to this step, right? I'll just showcase in a second. I can add like triggers. So for example, where are my triggers? Triggers, perfect. So I can say, for example, when you get to this step, if this happened, like it's more than 15, get an SMS to Kirk, send an email, automatically open a fault form, get a webhook to a different system, turn on a physical light to blink red on top of the like cell, whatever, right? And you do it by yourself with drag and drop and everybody's happy. Cool. So the elephant in the room. Building those is a pain in the butt. So pardon my friend, right? So even though it's way better than doing it with Word, it's still a job to do. And the hardest part about selling this is that you probably have tens or hundreds or thousands of documents that you don't want to invest time in making them digital. You want to invest like 2,000 man hours into building those trees for something you already wrote in Word. And that's, by the way, the #1 deal killer for MESs. How do I take my legacy and put it inside? And that's pretty much why only like enterprise customers buy MES systems, because they have the option to invest this type of effort into this. So what do we say? We say no. Let's see an example. So I just have a Google Doc here with some work instructions that I wrote, right? It's actually ChatGPT wrote, but I wrote, right? And I use the power of Command-C if you're with a Mac, or copy, Control-C with Windows. And I go here and I have the 3 dots here and I click import steps. And I just use the power of paste. And then I click generate steps from AI. So what happens now, it actually reads the instructions, understands the text, right? It's not just like taking the structure. And if the text says, check that you have 2 batteries, it will add a field for you to enter how many batteries do you have, right? So what did it understand? It understood that I have 7 steps with a few checkboxes and 1 quality notes text area. I click, let's create a new workflow. I click create a new workflow from this. I'll delete my old workflow. And with literally a click of a button, if I'll click preview, I have my Word document now a digital work instructions that I can use for batch record and for data collection. And it understood that I need an electronic screwdriver. So it took the data from which screwdrivers do I have it, and it built everything for me automatically. Make sense? Kill friction. That's what we're trying to do. And the other cool part. So this is great when you have something written, right? So reducing friction for all of the things that we already built at the legacy, right? But we probably, I really hope for our customers, will have new products, right? We'll have NPI and we'll have new part numbers that we're going to produce, and we'll have the knowledge at the like really smart Johns at our shop floor that only they know how to do it. And I want to take this knowledge from their head and put it in the heads of all of my employees. And I'll tell you a small secret that I'm guessing is not really a secret, that today's Gen Z employees don't stay for 45 years to be a lathe operator. And the Johns that have this knowledge in the like from 5 years ago to the next 10 years are going to retire, right? And the new Johns will stay for 2 to 3 years, best case scenario. So they won't even have the time to generate the new knowledge. And we have to like really now, that's imperative, to take the knowledge and get it and save it in ways that we can then use it later. Enters a tool called VMM, or we call, sorry, it's here called Video Magic Maker. So Video Magic Maker, as the name implies, it makes magic from videos, right? So we take videos. I'll do it live, even though it will take 2 minutes, but I think it has an impact where it happens live. So I'll browse my computer and I have a video of me creating an omelet. It takes a minute for it just to convert, so just a second. Again, we'll add elevator music at this point. Don't worry, that's a feature request already. And it happens, just 1 second. Perfect. So that's the video. I'll share my sound. I'm not sure how I can do it in Zoom. Here maybe, share settings. No, so I won't share my sound, but trust me, it's me and I'm speaking about how to make this omelet, right? So that's extra virgin olive oil if you were considering which type of oil am I using. And those are 4.5 minutes of me making the omelet. And then the main button here is analyze video. I click analyze video. And what happened is that the AI model is looking at the video, including what he hears and what's visually in the images, and does three things. It decides what are the steps being taken. It cuts the longer video into shorter videos for each one of those steps. And it writes the literal SOP for each one of those steps. This takes about 2 minutes. So we added a game that we can collect bad cogs. So we can collect bad cogs together. My best is 750, and we'll do a competition later if you want. So I'll give it a minute to finish, and we'll see the end result in a minute. If you have any questions by now, by the way, feel free. Don't wait till the end, like I said. Be rude Israelis.
Mickey, I keep having questions or observations, but I noticed that your
Sure.
system can take inputs from all the other systems, the MES, PLS, ERP. So your system can take all those data inputs.
Exactly. We're like, an MES is a layer that's in most cases under the ERP and adjacent to the PLM. That's pretty much how like the geography of our system works. But under us, we have CNC machines and cameras and whatever stuff that you want. And our philosophy is connectivity first. So we have pretty much any type of protocol that you can imagine. So OPC and API and SQL servers and LabVIEW and Python SDK and whatever. Throw it at us and it connects. It's like we're like chewing gum that takes every connection pretty easily. So I'll circle back to what happened here. It understood 9 steps, right? So gather tools, heat the pan, add the oil, crack the egg, scramble the egg, yada, yada, right? I can always fine tune. So I get, it's not perfect. It is not perfect, but it's 80%. So if I'm cutting like 80% of your time, I think it's worth it, right? So the not perfect, I can always like fine tune exactly where I want this video. I can add like annotations. So here, look at the pen, right? So here's the pen. Perfect. Here's the pen. And I do all of those like micro things. I can talk to it. So I can say, translate this to Spanish and consolidate the steps to be only 5. With all of my typos and all, it still reads it. We have a like competition in the company who writes worse and the AI still understands. I'm number 1, right? So I'm winning this. So it knows all of the context. It knows everything that happens here. It reads it. It will translate it in a second. Then it will understand which steps are most logical to consolidate. And the way that I speak to it allows me to do really cool stuff to it. So here it is, 5 steps. I told you my Spanish is not that good, but done. And then I have a button. I can either take it straight into Next+ to be a flowchart inside Next+, or if I really want, please don't want, but if I really want, I can print it. So I click Word, and I'll save this omelet here. And I have my Word document loading, and there's my omelet, and I can edit it, change it, do whatever I want with it. Does that make sense? With 8 minutes to spare, if you have any questions, I'm here for you, and I really appreciate the time. I will put a slide that I forgot to put a logo on. Where it is, just a second, with my email that I would love for you to write me. And I will say that all camps member will get a really cool thing, and that's a free Next+ user for a year. And through the newsletter, we'll send you like the details on how to redeem, I think, redeem the present. That's the word. Yeah,
that's good.
I'll take
it. And we'll put that information out along with the video. Your company.
Perfect. So I'm here for any questions for you.
Hey, Mickey, this is Dirk Becker. I've got a question for you for the version control that you spoke about. Hold on, my camera, I'm sure, is coming on. The version control, if you have multiple parts that are in the factory at one point in time, and you want to introduce a new version halfway through the build, how do you manage that? Because we have a really tough time right now making sure that, or how do you introduce that, the next version? And you spoke to that. If you can go into a little bit more detail.
Sure. You have a PLM system or no?
I don't know. I'm not that involved in it. I just know I don't know all the details around the issue.
No worries. So there's a lot of ways to tackle this. I'll go like a bit high level, then I'll drill down into the ideas behind the different ways you can tackle this. So first of all, there are 2 different things about versioning. The first version is about the product itself, right? So this is a product called PLS, blah, 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 revision A. It doesn't mean that this product has only one way to build it, because we built this product and then we understood that when we put the screw with more Loctite, it gets better, right? Or it doesn't break apart at the customer's hands, right? So I can add a new version for a workflow for the same product that I'm putting out. So that's one thing we're talking about, the workflow version against the part number version, revision, right? So those are two things that are living together. And when we're talking about ECOs, about electronic change orders, engineering change orders, sorry, it really depends on the organization. So there are companies that start them inside the ERP or inside the PLM, and then they trickle down to our system. There are companies that start those ECOs here, and depending on how fluid they want this to happen, they configure the system. And I'll give you two like very different examples. We have customers that say, listen, let's say I have a work order for 10 items. And after 5 items, someone changed something, right? So with no questions, no nothing, the 6th item, when the employee will press start, he will get the new version. No questions asked, no nothing. He'll get like the change log that you saw automatically, and then he'll run, and that's it, right? The other opposite of this spectrum is saying, listen, you started a work order, you'll finish with this part number. And if you want to change something, you'll need to open a waiver form and have an engineer sign off on this, and like a full workflow about how to change mid-work. And there's a big spectrum, and we pretty much comply with any type of way that you want to work. And that's a decision for the customer to make. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Is there a way for you to say, it's just you at the very beginning, you said it's just not everybody reads the work instructions. So, hey, I've put 100 of these together, and then all of a sudden the 101st, the work instructions have changed. How am I made aware of the fact that the work instructions have changed? Is there an acknowledgement to say, it's just, hey, changes have been made, please acknowledge, or I'm stopping you here so that you can't sign something off?
Perfect question. So again, there's levels for that. The basic level is that the first thing that the employee sees, it's the changes since the last ECO. That's like the basic level. Other things that you can do, and we have customers that implement this specifically in aerospace, that's the main way that you do it. You can add, and I'll edit this just for a second. I can add and say, listen, this is new, and I want to add a trigger here. And there are ways to do it only for a few employees. I won't deep dive into like the technicalities, but I can add a trigger with something called a pop-up, an error message, for example. And the pop-up will say, new step, make note. And then I write whatever I want, and so on and so forth. And I can add a special signature for him to sign off that he saw this pop-up.
Great.
Make sense?
Okay. Yeah, a lot of sense. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I had a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, this is a lot. And Mickey, I'm gathering that this system keeps learning with the company.
Yeah, so when we like fill out more forms and do more workflows, we get more data. And as we go, the AI machine has more data to go on and gets more like better insight and better solution faster to the employee on the shop floor.
Amazing.
By the way, if we think about it, like today, if I'll ask a question, like for me, I don't know, that's a hard question. I don't know, who was the first president of the UK or the first king? I don't know, whatever. And today, like in 2026, I won't say 2025, if you like tell me you have to answer, I'll just take my phone, ask it, and get an answer like in literally a second. But if you, as an employee on the shop floor, the machine is stuck, there's no way to ask, right? Google won't get you the answer. And we're trying to help our customers build like their Wikipedia, the technological Wikipedia of their operation and their specific operation. And it keeps getting better by more and more things that you do because the AI is learning from the things that you've already done.
Fascinating. Mickey, thank you again for taking the time to share all this great stuff. It's clear that your enthusiasm and fun nature is reflected in the platform. So I absolutely love all the new bells and whistles that you're throwing into that to take something that can be mundane, but bring more life to it. So appreciate it again. We will socialize your contact information so others, if they have any questions after the fact, they can reach out to you. And for everyone else who joined, thank you for taking time out of your schedules and we look forward to having you join our next Innovation Forum. All right, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.